Hey guys. I am out at the beach this morning with Samantha and the boys, and just thinking that this will be the appropriate place to go ahead and do our next lesson in our series called Lessons from Maps. Uh, Talking about maps, the lesson that I want to do today is connected to the idea of judging. And I want to do that by comparing it to the way that maps were made. I love maps, and at one point I was collecting old maps of Florida. And one of the things that's really fascinating about them to me is that the farther back you go, the more different the maps are. Like they start not looking like the Florida that we know anymore. And in fact, I have one it's a replica of an old map, one of the first made of Florida back in like the late 1500s, and it looks more like India. Like when I show it to people, just kind of like triangular shaped, and Lake Okeechobee is completely in the wrong spot. It's like almost up to like Gainesville area. It's just definitely not in the right place. It's you can't tell. Like you have to really look closely and read some of the captions and labels and stuff before you can actually tell that it's supposed to be Florida. And this makes me think about the way that they made maps back then. You see the ocean behind me there, and the way that these map makers would have done their job was to sail along the coast. They would have been on a boat that may not have been for the purpose of making a map, but there would have been a cartographer on the boat who was there for the purpose of trying to plot everything out and do the best job that he could of trying to make a map with the information that he had. The problem is they might not sail the full coast. They would just do a little part of it. And so he would want to make a whole map of Florida, but all he would have is just a little piece of information. And so a lot of times what these guys would have to do in order to make a complete map of the state is like use somebody else's information, like somebody else who had done some of the other work. They would put what they did, compare it to what somebody else did, and a lot of times there were areas, especially early on, there were areas that nobody had ever charted out before, and so they were they literally were just making up pieces of it as they go, doing their best guess about what the shape of the state of Florida looked like. And I think that's very similar to what we do when we look at other people. We call it judging, and rightly so. We try to teach people not to do it, and naturally we all do it. It's part of our human nature. But one of the reasons why the Bible tells us over and over again not to do it is simply because we're not good at it. We don't have all the information, and so the Bible reminds us that God is the one who has the full picture. God is the one who should be doing the judging, not us. We just don't, just like the map makers from back in the day who were making stuff up, but didn't have the full picture. We don't have the full picture when we look at somebody. All the behaviors and actions and things that people do, they come from somewhere. Whether there's all kinds of things that play a role in the decisions that we make, from our genetics to our childhood to how much we ate that morning, how much sleep we got the night before. All kinds of things that can impact the decisions that we make. And so we may run into somebody who treats us poorly, and to be tempted to think like, man, that person is such a jerk. And you might be right. Maybe that person is a jerk, but it's important for us to ask, well, why? Why are they a jerk? Why are they behaving that way? And I can't tell you how many times in my life, once I find out the why behind the story, it completely changes my perspective on a person. Multiple times now, I probably have told this story before, but a guy that I was friends with in Birmingham, when I lived there for a couple of years, I wasn't friends with him at first. I thought he was a real jerk. And finally, I sat down and talked to him one time. We played soccer together, and he was just a showboat, and just loved to make people look bad. He was a really good player, but liked to rub it in people's face at how good he was. And nobody there liked playing with him. Like, we all would just be miserable every time he would walk in to play. And finally, he said, I didn't sit down next to him. I didn't go talk to him. I should have. But he came and sat down next to me one day and just started pouring his heart out, telling me how lonely he was. He had just moved to the area a few months ago, and he really thought that that soccer was going to be the kind of the way in for him to meet some friends, but that didn't seem to be working either. And he didn't understand that what he was doing was actually pushing people away, not making him friends. He was just trying too hard. But we ended up becoming friends. Like, I realized that there was a good person in there, that he wasn't a jerk, that he was just kind of lost and lonely and trying too hard to figure out a way to make those connections. So he and I ended up being close the rest of the time that I lived in Birmingham. Just all kinds of stories like that where I make a judgment about someone and I'm wrong. I'm wrong because I don't have all the information, and I'm certain that you've done the same thing before. I promise you, whether you know it or not, you've done the same thing before. You've been wrong about someone because you didn't have the whole story. So that's kind of the moral of the story today. We don't have the whole story. We don't know everything that's going on in someone's life, and so rather than judging people, we should probably just recognize that if they're doing things that hurt people, it's probably coming from pain. If they're doing things that are mean or rude, it's probably like coming from a place of hurt themselves, and they don't know what's right, or maybe they're lonely and trying too hard. There's all kinds of things that are possible if we give people a chance. Even if we don't end up being friends with the person, it's still good for us to step back and to hold those judgments back and realize that, you know what, that's God's job. That's not my job. My job is to love people. My job is to pray for my enemy. If I don't like this person, that's just all the more reason why I need to be praying for them, not standing here talking bad about them and judging them. So that's the idea for the day. We don't have the whole picture. Don't pretend that you do, and don't make those snap judgments about people. Pray for people, be nice to people. Who knows, you might just be the little bit of light that they've needed in their life for a long time. Amen. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.